You can give Bob Pollock a call right now at 479-1160 or at 349-WCCS. Ask him your questions about lawns, gardens, and such. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
Wonderful. We didn't get a lot of time with it last week, but it's late in the season, but blight has appeared here in Indiana County, huh?
Yes, it has.
Yeah. So,
in Blair County's the latest county that got added this week.
Mm-hmm.
So Indiana, Cambria, and Blair all have it. Center County. So all those are connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
it's
then
a
you
chain.
got to go farther north, and then up in western New York, Erie, and Mercer.
Uh-huh.
So
that's
where it's been
it's
confirmed.
It's so late in the season that it's not going to have the effect that it had in previous years when it came at the beginning of August.
Yes.
Yeah. For a lot of people, their gardens are done.
Yes.
I'm one of them.
Are you happy about that?
That the garden is done?
Yeah.
I would have liked to have gotten some more.
A little bit more? A little longer?
Yeah. And the second planting of beans was wonderful, and the deer came through and just ripped it to shreds.
They'll do that in a hurry.
Oh, man.
Especially when there's not a lot else there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. And we took the fence down.
That'll do it. Overnight.
Yeah.
That's amazing how much.
How they know.
Yeah, how they know. How well the fence works to begin with.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be real fancy.
It doesn't have to be real tall. Just if the deer knows it's there.
Yeah, they'll kind of go around unless they're desperate.
Yeah.
Take the fence down and
just amazing.
All bets are off.
They just came and just ripped it to shreds. So no second planting beans for me today. All right. So some of the other things that we look at this time of the year as we begin to think about fall is pruning back things, getting set for the winter. Still a little bit of time before the growing season stops, though, right?
Yes, definitely. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll extend into October at some point before we get a good, hard-killing freeze. But we still a lot of time left. You know, you would have had a real nice harvest probably off those beans, and the weather would have continued to
They've been spectacular.
let those do their thing and produce, but not the case.
Let me ask you this. For planting shrubs so that they'll be established for next spring, is this the time to do that, or should we wait a little bit longer?
As we move into, we have ample moisture in the ground now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're still kind of the latest precipitation totals for the year show us that we're 7.4 inches above normal.
Okay.
We've received 39 inches of rain so far this year. And then you go a little bit west, into Armstrong County, they're 9.8 inches above normal. And into Butler County, 13 inches above normal. So even though we had a little dry spell there in August, that about 3 inches we got earlier in the week.
Yeah.
Brought us back up there again. And that's kind of one of the things you look at. If things are really dry and hot, then you may want to delay that planting a little bit. But a lot of plants now are grown in containers. So when you go to the nursery and garden center, you're going to find plants in containers. So in planting those, they've been growing in those containers.
They're established already.
Yeah, so there's not as much stress involved with planting those, and we have more freedom to plant things at a variety of times during the growing season when they're grown in those containers versus plants that have to be physically dug out of the ground and balled and burlapped
and nurtured.
So we have those are usually dug early in the spring before plants leaf out, and then they have to wait till fall when things go dormant in order to dig them, so that we have less stress on those plants.
So it's been a while since we've done this, so take us through the process, especially with those plants that are established in what basically are small buckets.
Yes.
When we pull those out of there and we take a look at that dirt pile or the dirt pack that is around it, sometimes there will be, we'll see the vein, they look like veins of the roots around it.
Yeah, so all those roots might be circling around the container,
exactly.
growing out. They grow out to the container, and then they hit a wall, and so they go left or right, or maybe both directions.
Exactly. So it looks like spaghetti.
Keep growing. Yeah,
that's
right.
There's spaghetti there in your bulb. Do you break that up? Do you just put it in the ground as it is? How big of a hole and how deep of a hole are we digging for that?
Now, with Depth-wise, we want to keep things planted at the depth where the soil level currently is. Occasionally, you have to check that, though. You have to make sure where the stem meets the soil, whether, even in the pot, because sometimes extra soil will get added into the pot sometimes. And so we want to make sure that we replant that plant at the level that it should be planted at. So where its root system starts to flare out and grow, and then the stem starts and grows up. We don't want to cover that stem or trunk of that plant up.
Okay.
So occasionally you've got to even pull soil away within that pot. So plant it at that level where the roots are, and it's good to break those up, especially if they're winding around the pot and circling the pot.
Okay.
Eventually they'll kind of keep growing that way, even after you plant them in the ground. Some of them will start and branch out.
They'll go the direction that they're headed.
Yeah. And part of that, too, is when you dig a hole in the ground, depending on your soil and how tight it is, you can essentially kind of dig a pot in the ground. If your ground's really hard and the wall of what you dig is still very firm and hard and a lot of clay in there, it all needs loosened up. That allows those roots to more easily move out and grow out versus just kind of staying within that looser soil once you plant it in the ground.
That's going to scare people, though. I've got this root ball here. If I loosen this up and make those roots hang down, I'm going to kill it. That's what.
And actually, you should chop those off. You should
really
cut them. You can just.
They're never going to do that.
You got to cut them. So that they're growing straight out. Because even when you cut them off, then they'll branch out and then grow out versus continue to grow in circles. So you got to chop that off. Now, some plants, there may not be as many roots. That root ball may not be as tight. Sometimes there's so many roots in there you can hardly see the soil. And in other cases, you take it out of the pot and the soil almost falls away because it's a younger plant or the root system hasn't developed as much.
Or the soil in the plot isn't the right mixture.
Yeah, that could be too.
Yeah.
But in that case, you don't have to do much teasing out of those roots. But every plant's different. You got to pull that pot off, and you got to check it and make sure. And then sometimes on the bottom, the sides might be okay, but on the bottom, there's a thick mat of roots that are circling around.
Those have to come off too, huh?
Yeah, so you can just whack those off, or those ones on the bottom, you can just kind of do a crisscross, cut one way in half and then turn 90 degrees and cut the other way. It's kind of like cutting a pie.
Okay.
Just to chop those up and then fold them out. And then that'll let them start and grow out within the hole.
And people are going to then call and blame you because they did it wrong, killed it. Just saying.
So it's better to do that than to not do it, though.
All right.
So, and if you want, and I've seen plants, 3, 4, 5 years later, they're not doing well. And
that's why.
And then you start excavating and looking around, and you can see that. And then those roots can fuse together. They'll continue to grow around. They'll continue to grow in size, too, every year. And then they'll eventually congirdle each other, or sometimes they'll graft over each other where they touch. But a lot of times they'll encircle and girdle, but it might be 5 to 10 years later that plant declines and dies, and you don't really, and it goes back to those encircling roots.
Goes all the way back to that.
Yep, goes all the way back to that.
How about that? Okay, anything else we need to pass along today?
Of course, we're into September, so if you need to do lawn touch-up, reseeding, spots, or seeding a whole yard, great time of year to do that. The cover cropping on your garden, so if your garden's done, now's a great time to plant, for example, rye, and seed that garden over with rye, because that'll give you later, once it grows. And rye will overwinter too, so it'll start and grow now. Get some coverage on there, which helps hold the soil in place. And then it'll overwinter like that, and then in the spring it'll start and grow some more. And so you'll make a green manure crop, which you'll till in, and of course, as that decays, you'll add nutrients and organic matter to your soil and help improve it. You don't have to do that every year, but it's good occasionally, to get in a habit of doing that and adding that organic matter back in. Now,
Just
some people will add manure, as another way of adding organic matter, but this is a way of growing a crop and doing it.
And a soil sample. Maybe we'll talk about this next week. Getting a soil sample done in the fall to tell you how to treat your ground for over the winter. We'll talk about that next week. Okay? Beautiful. There you go. He's Bob Pollock, the Extension Service. You can give him a call, 465-3880.
Yes.
How about that? All those years.
It's still there.
I still remember it.